there are three doorways to liberation, shall we say. One is the introduction to awareness, to aware basic space. And the other is absence of characteristics. So there's no metaphorical approximation or description that can really describe the reality of what we are. And the other doorway to liberation is absence of intellectual speculation. So we're not trying to be something. Because it's indescribable, it can never be described. And each moment of the great reality of what we are is beyond description. So one moment the description might arise utter lucidity. The next moment it might be pure space. But you see, none of these is conclusively the description of what we are, because it's beyond intellectual speculation, beyond any kind of description whatsoever. So in the Great Freedom Teaching, we use very specific symbols. All words are symbols. But when we use symbols that are visual symbols along with more abstract words, these two together, and when the symbols are unrelenting and powerful in their communication, these two together work in a very powerful way to introduce us to the reality of what we are. The reality of what we are, when we base our whole life on our perceptions or points of view, is that we have a very limited notion of what our body, speech, and mind and our capabilities are. We have a very limited notion of that because it's all based on characteristics. It's all based on the realm of cause and effect. We've learned, most of us, is the world of cause and effect, so we continue living that way. We base everything on cause and effect. Whether we're non-spiritual or spiritual, we're looking for causes to create an effect. And so the body, speech, and mind is limited to this framework or context of points of view. Just points of view that are all about cause and effect and nothing else. And all the while, the all-inclusive awakened awareness that is our true reality, that is our true body, speech, and mind. So our true body, speech, and mind is totally beyond causality, yet includes causality, understands it, can operate incredibly effectively within it and as it. But we never know that if we persist in living our whole life based on all the points of view. And, the powers, the immense power and force of this vast expanse of awakened body, speech, and mind cannot be contained in any way. It cannot be contained in any way, and it is inseparable from its beneficial nature. So rather than this being an extreme state of transcendence or disembodiment or splitting off from the body, it is full embodiment of the great reality of all-inclusive awakened awareness. And we know that that is real in us, that it's fully evident when we feel an actual warmth of compassion arise within us, a warmth of compassion, of love, of wisdom that cannot be held back. There's no holding it back. It just floods and pervades everything because it's inseparable from everything. So this is the evidence that we really are realizing who we are. And we cannot realize that unless we take stock. So you see, it isn't just a matter of realizing that everything is aware basic space. Then we need to take stock. We need to take stock at the same time. So parallel to this awakening to ourselves as aware basic space, vast as the infinite sky, we need to take stock. We need to look into how our suffering came about. How did all these points of view and belief in them cause me to suffer? How did they affect my relationships with other people? How did they cause suffering in my relationships? How did they cause suffering in my family life, in my community, in my world? And when we look at this, we see deeply that that if we persist as humankind to live within the narrow confines of cause and effect, then we'll continue to hate each other. A lot. We have a lot of that going on in the world. Hatred and bewilderment. We have a lot of that going on in the world. Because you see, when we fear ourselves, when we fear our own points of view and need to organize our thoughts into good, neutral, and bad thoughts, then we fear ourselves. We spend our entire life trying to reorganize all these points of view that seem to be occurring inwardly. And when we do that, we squander our entire lifetime trying to reorganize something and never recognizing its true essence of awakened awareness. So when we do that, we fear ourselves. We feel we can't trust ourselves. We're always trying to make ourselves good or better. And when we do that, when we fear ourselves, we immediately, instantaneously fear everyone else. When we fear ourselves, we fear everyone else. We think we need to be fixed, and then we think everybody else needs to be fixed too. So this persists in dyads, one-to-one relationships, in our family life, in our communities and world. So we see a lot of this today, right? We see a lot of this, I'm right. My country is right. My culture is right. My government is right. My leader is right. My nuclear missiles are right. My hoarding of resources is right. Whatever it is. So all of this is within the realm of cause and effect. And we just have taken up this belief. We've adopted the belief from other people that we are limited to the confines of cause and effect. But we need to live our lives in this state of bewilderment and powerlessness, totally lost within the realm of point of view. But all the while, point of view is a pure realm. It's a pure realm of total equalness and evenness. In non-duality, there never have been two. So we're not trying to correct two and make it into one. There never have been two. Never been two. So there's no one to fix. If we start our spiritual path or path to being human or whatever it is by saying, but there's someone who needs to be fixed, a personal identity that needs to calm down or be rectified, or even a mind that we need to do something with. All points of view, personal identity, mind, ego, psychology, intellect, cat, dog, cell phone, television set, food. They're all points of view, and they're all entirely equal. There is no storehouse or container of points of view other than all-inclusive awakened awareness. So there is no mind that is a personal storehouse of personal points of view. Begin with the end of mind. The mind is an illusion. It's been an illusion from the beginningless beginning. Everyone takes herself or himself to have a mind only because that belief system has been adopted from others. But in non-duality, there have never been two. There is not awakened awareness and then a personal identity that needs to be fixed. A personal identity is merely an appearance in awareness, inseparable from it, that rarely occurs. Rarely does anyone say, oh, I'm somebody. I'm really somebody. And I think about it all the time. I'm somebody. I'm somebody. I'm somebody. I'm somebody. That's how I know I'm somebody. I think about it all the time. Well, we don't think about it all the time. We rarely have the perception, gee, I'm somebody. And so, the reality of it is that when we take stock, we look at how all these points of view have affected us, how the belief systems and assumptions we've adopted from culture, whether they're spiritual or non-spiritual, give us a message about who we are, and then we willingly adopt that. That's entirely up to us. If we want to live our whole life within cause and effect, then that's what our self-knowing awareness is. The embodiment of self-knowing awareness in each perception can rest is the immediacy of the essence of that perception, or get involved in a big story of cause and effect about what's going on. So, the more we realize the seeds of our being that's never been contained by anything, that's never been limited, restricted, confined in any way, then all of a sudden we begin to realize things about ourselves that we never imagined possible. We never imagined possible, that already existent, inherent, innate. Within us, as us, is wisdom, all-encompassing wisdom, vast as infinite space. That the power of our mind, too, rather than being limited to something called a brain or a mind or anything like that it, too, is vast as infinite space. That our true body is vast as infinite space. And within that are all possibilities, probabilities, and permutations.